Hello and welcome. It's 10 a.m. on Tuesday, the 21st of October. You're tuned in to our mid-morning newscast here on ARIRANG TV. Thanks ever so much for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. Let's take a look at what's making the headlines. Korea will dispatch a small advance team of officials to Sierra Leone and Liberia in the coming weeks to support international efforts to fight the deadly Ebola virus. Pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong refuse to budge after the High Court orders them to leave their main demonstration sites. Televised talks between the government and student protest leaders are set for this evening. Plus, Apple crushes the fourth quarter with a record $8.5 billion profit on over $42 billion in sales, as the company sells a staggering 39 million iPhones over the three-month period. But our top story this morning: Korea has pledged to join the international fight against the Ebola outbreak in Sierra Leone and Liberia. Officials say volunteer medical workers will be sent after a small advance team of about 6 or 7 assesses the situation in those West African countries. Our Shin Se-min starts us off.
A support team of 6 to 7 Koreans will be sent to 2 West African nations in early November as part of global efforts to stop the spread of Ebola. The Ministries of Foreign Affairs, Health and Defense said in a briefing Monday that they will send an advance team of people from the 3 government agencies to review safety plans for dispatching future support teams. The government is still reviewing which countries they will be sent to, but Sierra Leone and Liberia are said to be the most likely destinations. They also add that the safety of the medics will be the highest priority and that consultations with countries that have already sent support teams such as the US, UK and Germany were held. In addition to the manpower, Korea has also pledged $15 million in the global fight against Ebola. The worldwide death toll in the Ebola outbreak has surpassed 4,500, yet there are some positive developments. And in the U.S., 48 people who came into contact with an Ebola patient in Texas have been taken off the Ebola watch list after showing no signs of the virus. Shin Se-min, ARIRANG News.
And another very positive development on the fight against Ebola, because Nigeria has been declared officially free of the virus after 6 weeks without any new cases. The World Health Organization made its announcement on Monday in Abuja, easing fears the virus might have spread to one of Africa's most densely populated countries. The head of the WHO had said a couple of days ago that the appearance of Ebola in a city the size of Lagos would have been the worst nightmare scenario. Officials say the spectacular success shows Ebola can be contained, but they stress the war will only be over when the rest of West Africa is declared Ebola-free. Nigerian doctors were credited for quickly identifying a Liberian-American diplomat who came to Nigeria as having Ebola and placing him in quarantine, along with scores more that had come into contact with him. In other news, the highest decision-making body for the communications technologies, the International Telecommunications Union Conference, has begun its second day in the southern Korean city of Busan on this Tuesday. And as our Song Ji-son reports, officials there are aiming to narrow the information gap and bridge the digital divide.
Connect 2020 is the vision for the ITU heading into this year's conference. It's a vision that highlights the role of information and communication technologies as a key enabler for social, economic, and environmentally sustainable growth and development. The ITU is UN's oldest international organization and started out setting standards for telegraph services. Today, it embraces issues ranging from cybersecurity and climate change to expanding internet access for the less privileged.
ICTs are, in short, among the keys to achieving sustainable development. As we shape a new development agenda and strive for a new agreement on climate change, let us continue to work together to harness the power of technology to create an accessible and sustainable future for all.
As the host of this year's plenipotentiary and one of the world's leading ICT countries, Korea hopes to contribute to helping other countries achieve sustainable growth by sharing its experience.
We wish to come up with solutions at an ITU level that include everyone, especially by improving infrastructure in developing countries. Above all, it is crucial to share our ICT policy experience for shared growth and mutual understanding.
The first plenary session followed on Monday, with Korea chairing the meeting as host. Equal access to the internet and sustainable growth were once again stressed as this year's keywords. To that end, this year's plenipotentiary will also serve as an open venue to build ties outside scheduled events. From this Monday, bilateral and multilateral talks seeking cooperation in the ICT sector will be held throughout the three-week conference between some 3,000 delegates from the 193 member countries. 송지선, 아리랑 뉴스, 부산.
Also present at the opening day of the global conference was President Park Geun-hye. The Korean leader said the world should provide better ICT access to the marginalized and boost security against cyber threats, which are a real problem these days. Our Choi Yoo-san has this report.
In an age of superconnectivity, telecommunications and new ICT-based industries are continuously changing the ways in which we live. Addressing this year's International Telecommunication Union Conference in Korea's southeastern city of Busan, President Park Geun-hye said the rapidly developing environment poses new challenges to the world. The Korean president first referred to a widening information and communications gap between countries and regions, saying only 3 out of 10 people have internet access in the developing world, compared to nearly 8 out of 10 in advanced nations.
앞으로 전기통신과 ICT가 지역과 국가, 성별과 계층을 뛰어넘어 모든 인류의 인권 향상과 복지 증진을 위한 기술이 될 수 있도록 국제사회가 정보통신 격차 해소를 위해 적극 나설 것을 제안합니다.
President Park then talked about the need to bolster the response system against cyber threats and to systematically ensure the safety of new convergence industries and services. The Korean leader used the opportunity to promote her government's efforts to start a creative economy that converges IT with other sectors to innovate, spur growth, and create new jobs.
저는 이러한 초고속 네트워크 기반 위에서 우리 경제의 패러다임을 추격형에서 선도형으로 전환하기 위한 창조 경제 전략을 추진하고 있습니다.
Endorsing the ITU vision of ICT growth, inclusiveness, sustainability, and innovation, President Park vowed Korea will do its part by sharing its own know-how with the marginalized in society and developing countries. Choi Yoo-san, Arirang News.
North Korea says it will continue to patrol the heavily fortified inter-Korean border and warned of retaliation should Seoul carry on with what it called provocations. Seoul's defense ministry said the North sent the message through a military hotline on Monday, condemning warning broadcasts and shots fired by South Korean soldiers a day earlier. The two Koreas briefly exchanged cross-border fire near Paju on Sunday after around 10 North Korean soldiers were spotted walking towards the military demarcation line. South Korea's defense ministry says the shots were actually a responsible response, given that warnings were issued and ignored by those North Korean troops. Seoul also expressed disappointment that Pyongyang was placing the responsibility on the South and urged the North to stop its provocations. South Korea and the United States will hold a joint foreign and defense ministers meeting this week. Seoul's foreign ministry says the so-called 2+2 talks will be held in Washington on Thursday local time. South Korean Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se and Defense Minister Han Min-gu will attend the meeting, along with U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry and U.S. Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel. The two allies are expected to cover a range of issues during these talks, including North Korea's nuclear program and measures to strengthen bilateral ties. Prior to this, they're going to hold their annual security consultative meeting, where they'll likely discuss the timing of the transfer of wartime operational control, or OPCON, from Washington to Seoul. In domestic politics, representatives from Korea's ruling and opposition party are going to meet on this Tuesday to discuss the pending Sewol-ho ferry bill and two other bills related to April's tragic sinking. Ruling Saenuri Party floor leader Lee Wang-gu will meet with his New Politics Alliance for Democracy counterpart Woo Yoon-gun to discuss in detail the Sewol-ho ferry bill, which lawmakers want passed by the end of this month. They will also discuss the 2015 budget inspection schedule and the National Assembly's plenary session that's set to start next week. Both parties will begin discussing the so-called Government Organisation Act revision from this Tuesday. Well, it's time now for a look through the international headlines we're following on this Tuesday morning here in Seoul. For that, we turn to Eunice Kim, standing by as always for us at the News Centre. Good morning, Eunice.
Hello, Mark.
So dialogue between the Hong Kong government officials and pro-democracy leaders are set to start tonight at around 7 p.m. Korea time, we believe. And ahead of that, the territory's High Court has ordered all the protesters to leave certain parts of the city.
Right, certain parts of the city. There were a total of 3 injunctions that were issued last night, awarded to local taxi associations, a bus company, and an investment company, all of whom had argued the occupations had simply lasted too long and was proving to be a public nuisance. The order to clear affected roads in the districts of Mongkok and Admiralty. Student leaders left it up to the individual to ultimately choose whether to stay or leave. This as that long-awaited dialogue between government officials and student protest leaders is set to take place at 6 p.m. local time tonight. There are low expectations that a breakthrough will be reached in the televised event to end the weeks-long sit-ins that have blocked traffic around the financial hub. Ahead of it, embattled leader C.Y. Leung told the New York Times that the universal suffrage protesters have been calling for was unacceptable, in part because it risked populism driven by the voices of poorer residents. Indonesia has sworn in its newest leader, Joko Widodo, ushering in a new chapter for the world's third largest democracy. The man who grew up in the slums of Java took his oath as the nation's 7th president on Monday in front of members of parliament as well as top foreign delegates, including U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry and Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott. The 53-year-old is the first Indonesian president to not come from a military or political elite background. Following his narrow victory in July, the former furniture salesman turned Jakarta governor told his audience it was time to realize an Indonesia that has political sovereignty, economic independence, and cultural character. For all the optimism surrounding his inauguration, political watchers say enormous challenges await Widodo in his 5-year term, including fierce opposition in parliament against his economic and political reform drives. And Washington is under fire after a report found that the U.S. government had paid out millions of dollars in Social Security to dozens of suspected Nazi war criminals forced out of the country. A senior House Democrat is demanding an investigation after the Associated Press reported that a legal loophole had allowed the payments funneled using taxpayer money. The U.S. Justice Department said benefits are paid to those who had first renounced their U.S. citizenship and left voluntarily, but Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney argues that using public resources to support outlaws for several years simply made little sense. And wrapping in the UK, Prince William and his wife Kate Middleton have announced they are expecting their second child April of next year, just in time for their 4th wedding anniversary. The two were married in April 29, 2011. Kensington Palace also announced that the Duchess of Cambridge was getting better after a severe bout of morning sickness that had forced her to cancel several engagements. So far, though, no word yet on the gender of Prince George's younger sibling.
Get connected to Korea and the world. Join us every weekday for the latest developments out of Korea, Asia, and beyond. On air, on your mobile, and online, we lead the way every day. ARIRANG News.
To try and resolve the crisis in Ukraine, the European Union also offers $15 billion. Apple's fourth quarter earnings have smashed expectations on the back of very strong iPhone sales. The company posted $42.1 billion in sales and a record net profit of $8.5 billion. Now, Apple sold 39.3 million iPhones in its most recent quarter, the first that the new iPhone 6 and iPhone 6 Plus were on sale. That's well above what analysts were expecting and 16% more in the same period compared to the same period last year. Apple sold a record 5.5 million iMac computers. That's up more than 20% from the same quarter in 2013. The only black mark in an otherwise glowing report was its flagging iPad line. iPad sales were down 13% on year for the third successive quarter of decline. Now, some of the key industries that have kept the Korean economy moving forward are steadily losing their competitive edge, and this is raising some serious questions about how Korea can change its economic structure to ensure sustainable growth in the years to come. Our Kim Ji-yeon reports.
Korean firms that ply their trade in the industrial sector are calling for more deregulation to improve business conditions. To achieve that, the Korea Chamber of Commerce and Industry submitted a proposal to the government on Monday.
The Korean economy is currently stagnant and is in need of structural reforms through deregulation. There's a decline in demand due to the maturity of the market, while cheaper goods are being produced in neighboring countries like China and Japan.
The calls are perhaps loudest from those involved in the mobile phone, shipbuilding, and automobile sectors. They have positioned themselves as three of the so-called pillars of the Korean economy, but are now seeing their dominance diminish as the rates of increase in sales and operating profits are on a sharp decline. In a survey of 176 local companies, the rate of increase in sales among smartphone companies show a steep decline, recording a more than a 9% drop in the first half of this year. The shipbuilding industry finds itself in a similar position. Some, like Hyundai Heavy Industries and Samsung Heavy Industries, even recorded operating losses in the first 6 months of the year. Of the three, the auto sector appears to be faring the best, but sales are starting to sputter as the rate of increase in sales came to 1.5% in the first half of this year. The Park Geun-hye administration has been calling for deregulatory moves in the industrial sector, but its efforts are being stifled by the rising number of regulations from municipal governments and passive behaviors of civil servants when granting approval for business licensing. Kim Ji-yeon, ARIRANG News.
Now, in line with the government's push to encourage more active foreign investment, Korea's Prime Minister has pledged to improve business conditions so that foreign companies and local firms can grow together. Jong Hong-won's comments came during a meeting in Seoul with 26 heads of foreign firms, including Mercedes-Benz and Intel. The Prime Minister said foreign firms are one of the major pillars of the Korean economy, as they contribute to 20% of the country's total exports and 6% of total employment. Now, the World Health Organization is warning that worldwide cancer cases are growing at an alarming rate and urgent action is needed to prevent a global crisis. The WHO says healthy behaviors could prevent a lot of cancer deaths each and every year, so it's released a list of guidelines that we should all try and follow. Connie Kim reports.
The World Health Organization has rolled out a dozen health tips to help reduce the risk of cancer by half. Experts at the WHO's International Agency for Research on Cancer say the recommendations allow people to change their behavior on an individual level. At the top of the list, do not smoke. Do not use any form of tobacco. Have a smoke-free home and workplace. Smoking is a main culprit that kills 6 million people annually and an additional 600,000 from secondhand smoke. The harmful habit is also blamed as the biggest cause of premature death from chronic conditions such as heart disease, stroke, and high blood pressure. New tips on the list urge people to look for potential exposure to radiation at home and to actively reduce high radon levels. Bowel, breast, and cervical cancer screening tests were also suggested. For females in particular, it recommended breastfeeding, limiting the use of hormone replacement therapy, and HPV vaccinations for girls. The 12-point code also stressed the importance of avoiding alcohol, excessive sun exposure, and maintaining a healthy diet. The WHO's Specialized Cancer Agency says it hopes the new code will help individuals to take concrete action for themselves, friends and family in order to significantly cut down the risks of developing cancer. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
And a good Tuesday morning to you all as we kick things off in the LPGA, where South Korea got the good news on Monday that they'll host the 2018 LPGA International Crown. Now, the biennial international competition, which kicked off for the first time this year, will have Korea as the first nation outside of the U.S. to host the International Crown. Mike Won, the commissioner of the LPGA Tour, stated that the nation was an easy choice to host the event, considering their long support of the LPGA. Meanwhile, Spain won the inaugural international crown earlier this year, with Korea finishing in third place. And shifting over to the 2014 Incheon Asian Paralympics Games. Now, South Korea dominated the bowling competitions at the Asian Games, but seems like it's the same case over in the Asian Paralympic Games as well. Now, after winning 4 gold medals in bowling on the first day, Korea adds 3 more gold medals in the two-person competitions on Monday. So far, with 7 out of 12 bowling competitions being played, Korea has won all the gold medals as they surpassed their previous goal of winning 5 gold medals in the sport. And now moving over to Game 2 of the first round of the KBO playoffs between the LG Twins and the NC Dinos, as the LG Twins have a 1-0 series lead after their big win on Sunday. But unfortunately for the fans, the game was postponed due to rain on Monday and will be made up later today. And now with that, staying in baseball, but over to Japan, where former Samsung Lions closer Oh Seung-hwan is making a trip to the Japan series in his first year in Japan with the Hanshin Tigers, as he awaits Lee Dae-ho of the SoftBank Hawks to advance as well. Now in the decisive Game 7 of the series between the SoftBank Hawks and the Nippon Ham Fighters on Monday, Lee Dae-ho goes 2 for 3 with an RBI double in the 8th inning, helping SoftBank win the game 4-1 and advances to the Japan series. And now with the Hanshin Tigers and the SoftBank Hawks squaring off for the championship, Korean fans await as they hope to see the battle between Lee Dae-ho and Oh Seung-hwan. And now finishing things off in the NFL, Peyton Manning, who went into his Sunday night game against the San Francisco 49ers 2 touchdowns short of the career touchdown record, shattered it with ease. With Brett Favre's record of 508 touchdowns in arm's reach, the future Hall of Fame quarterback throws 4 touchdowns against the 49ers in the 42-17 victory to set a new record of 510 touchdowns. Now, with the 509th touchdown came in the second quarter when Peyton Manning connected with Demaryius Thomas on an 8-yard strike. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Showers have picked up overnight in central parts of the nation, including here in Seoul, are receiving autumn showers at this hour. And about 5 to 20 millimeters of precipitation is in store for here in the capital, where some parts in the southern areas could see up to 120 millimeters, and that could be accompanied by thunder and lightning, also strong gusty winds. And afternoon highs will be similar to yesterday. There will be about 2 to 3 degrees of temperature gaps between lows and highs much today. So let's take a closer look at today's temperatures. Now, the daytime high in the capital will only make it to 16, while Daegu and Gwangju will peak at 19 and 21, and Busan also tops out at 21 later in the day. Now, for other regions, Jeju Island and Daejeon will see highs of 24 and 17, and Dokdo sees highs of 16 later in the day. Well, today's rain will go away from the late in the evening, and we'll have our beautiful autumn weather back tomorrow. And it will stay mostly dry and sunny, but do notice the low temperature daily lows and stay warm and dress accordingly. That's all I have for you at this hour, and let's send it back to Mark in the studio.
Thank you very much, Jion, for the weather there, as always. And that's all we have for now. We'll be back again with another newscast at noon Korea time in about 90 minutes. Until then, goodbye.